everybody, and welcome to another video tutorial, and Happy New Year's! This week's video tutorial was voted on, and you guys chose for me to actually paint a demon with black wings. Now, since the wings are easier to draw generally at the end of a piece, I decided to actually just design the wings at the end, obviously. Just because I do have some textured brushes, it makes it a little bit easier for me to increase the contrast between the body parts and the wings, so it just makes more sense design-wise to do it after I finish the rest of the painting. Now, as you can see right now, I am currently working on the general structure for this image. Now, at this stage, I have not started exaggerating the pose overly much, and I haven't started exaggerating and playing around with the perspective. You will see later on that I will actually change the opacity of this layer and start painting on top of it after I've actually skewed it. The reason why I do this is so that I can play around with the proportions a bit more and see if I can actually make a more dynamic pose and camera angle for the final painting. So this is an important step for this piece because I did want to actually have 4 arms, so this is like a massive creature. So he has wings, he has 4 arms, he's a demon. So including all those elements required that I balance out a lot of the proportions of the body. So that they made a bit more sense. But I also wanted to show that super dynamic angle, so the best way to do it was to actually come close to actually finishing the sketch before I actually redo it with a more finalized version. So right now I'm just working out some of the design elements for the clothing that I'm actually going to include on this character. Although he's a demon, I did want him to have some unique characteristics for his clothing designs. So for this reason, I actually experimented with some boots. I experimented on showing more of the character, decided I didn't like it, and actually zoomed into the character once again to get the final pose. So at this stage, I've just exaggerated and skewed everything so that I can work out the proper perspective. So I added my perspective lines, and I'm going in, I'm just trying to get the correct proportions and perspective for this pose. So exaggerating this requires that I overlap quite a bit of the body so that it looks like it's foreshortened properly. So getting an angle like this can be extremely difficult, so the perspective lines are very important and pretty much a necessity to ensure that everything is correct. The perspective lines will also help with the background elements because it allows me to once again align up background elements to that grid. Now, one problem that I did encounter because I did not actually lock the layer is that you will see that I actually have to paint over those lines. So what this does is it causes me to have to repaint on top of everything, even if I do like certain portions showing through. So it does increase the amount of time for this image. So this entire image took about 5 hours to complete. So this still wasn't a very long image, but it was a very technical image. And once again, since I didn't separate their perspective lines properly, they caused me to have to go in afterwards and paint out the whole background before I could repaint it in properly without the perspective lines. So I'm just working out the musculature on the arms. Figuring out the arm muscles was actually pretty difficult. What I found helped the most in this case was actually looking at some reference material. Obviously, there's a couple creature designs that do include 4-armed creatures. The most notable one that I could come up with was actually in the Mortal Kombat movie. There's the 4-armed race, essentially, that's featured in that. I'm not a huge Mortal Kombat fan, so I can't name out the race, but I did use it as a source. Specifically, elements or the animatronics that were used had really good visuals and showed me how they had actually approached this design problem themselves. So that gave me an idea of how I was going to go about it. So since he's a demon, I wanted to have him actually smoking the cigarette out of all things, and also have some energy coming out of his hands. So he has 4 arms, he has legs, it has a lot of reflected light that has to go into the wings, which is why I can't work on the wings yet. That, and since I had to redo all the background elements, it didn't make any sense to do that until I had actually done the wings properly. So at this stage, I'm painting out my perspective lines and my grid that I have back there, and I'm going in and removing any of the lines that I can find to make sure that they don't show up in the final image. Now, because I worked everything in grayscale, I will go in shortly once the background has been repainted, and I will actually add a color layer to add some initial colors to the overall painting. Now, the only problem with using the color layer is that I find that you have to go in afterwards and you actually have to darken up certain areas, and you have to really watch out for the saturation of the colors because you don't want them too saturated either. So that's something that you definitely have to watch out for when you're using the color layer. Now, since I don't have my perspective lines again, I actually saved a copy of the previous information I had before and just copied and pasted it on top and changed it to a multiply layer so I could actually refer back to my original grid. So I've just added the color layer, as you can see right now, and I'm trying to keep the colors very subtle because I want them to still blend and look like they go together. I'm using my color wheel to figure out what colors will work best together, and then afterwards I go in and I have to repaint certain areas to make sure that they tie in correctly, musculature wise and detail wise, so that everything fits as one single piece. So this is a very important step because I find that if you don't do this, you'll get certain parts of the body that don't fit, that look too saturated in one color and then not saturated enough in another color. This helps prevent this entirely. So another thing that I'm doing currently is I'm also sharpening up some of the darker areas as I go to make sure that they have enough contrast and that there's enough differences in the color ranges so that they fit together. As you can see, I painted in the wings and I'm using a texture brush. Once again, it just helps save some time. I can use the default round brush if I wanted to. This just makes it a bit faster. It's the same techniques that are applied though. As you can see, this is the final image. I hope you guys enjoyed it and I hope to see you guys soon. So thank you and take care and Happy New Year's.